My name is Odie Hawkins, and this evening I'm putting the finishing touches on a long short story called Malaria. Zola, you've never had malaria, right?
Hallelujah, no, I haven't.
You don't need it.
Thank you.
Trust me.
I trust you.
No one needs malaria.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm using malaria as a vehicle to take us through a number of things that I experienced living in Ghana for a few years in the 90s in the city of Accra.
Yes.
My neighborhood was Osu, and also I lived in Roman Ridge and Adebraka and Laboni and Labadi. I was all over the place for a while. Okay, what I'm doing here, giving you little character profiles of people that I interacted with on a day-to-day basis. And I hope it'll be interesting to you, Zola, because you were there with me in 2013 and 2014.
Yes.
And we met a guy named Kofi. That became the guy, the go-to guy.
Yes.
When I lived there in earlier years, the go-to man was a guy named Kwame.
Right.
So Kofi, this is about...
And of course, Leonard Kennedy.
Oh my God, yes.
Okay. And of course, your old friend, Susan Amagashi, and Rama Brew, and Kofi, and
You get to know
Koyo.
people.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, you get to know people. You don't have to mention Susan Amagashi because everybody knows Susan Amagashi.
Of course.
But a lot of people do not know Mrs. Owusu at the Acacia Lodge.
Yes, lovely place to stay.
And but we can remember this.
Yes,
Let me finish
another
the
time.
piece.
Yes, please.
A long short story. I think I came to know Ode better than anyone in Ghana here because I was his taxi driver, the one who took him to collect his money from the post office. Many times the money was not there. I drove him this place to that place many times on credit. Oh, he always paid me, but I felt so sorry for him, going back and forth to the post office to receive nothing. I spoke to his wife many times about the problems he was having, and he was always having the malaria. So many times. I myself have had the malaria, but I think he had more malaria than I had. I would always have nice memories of O'Day because whenever he received his money, he would dash me handsomely. I was never absolutely certain of Brother Kwame's loyalty to me. I never got past the notion that he was playing games with my head. Or maybe I was feeding on the paranoia that develops when you can't speak the other guy's language. I had no doubts about Brother Kwame's abilities to overcharge and shortchange. I was exposed to those sides of his character on a number of occasions. Like he's driving me somewhere, sees a friend who needs a ride and picks him up. Now, automatically, the 2 hours that I have chartered his taxi are shut down. The minute someone else enters the taxi, I'm no longer the one responsible for paying the fare. That was the understanding, the rule. The first time he pulled that on me, we had a polite discussion. The second time, it was slightly more heated, but we worked it out. I always had the feeling that he was surprised that I could be such a laid-back type and quite firm at the same time. I wouldn't allow him or anyone else to take advantage of me, and I think he grew to respect that. In many ways, Brother Kwame personified the Ghanaian temperament. He could be incredibly warm, loyal, and efficient one day, and the total opposite the next day. I don't know, I think there's something like national characteristics, The longer I lived in Ghana with all of the insecurities attached to life there, the better I understood the makings of a personality that was basically warm, but had to have its cold spot to survive. The strange quirks of inefficiency I never understood. Brother Kwame has collected me every single day for a week to run me here and there. I have paid him and dashed him well. And then, on that crucial day, when I really need to have him take me to this important appointment at the Horizon newspaper office, he doesn't show. What happened? Malaria? No. He drives under that influence quite often. One of his 5 children is sick? No. What? I can't figure it out. Especially because I've seen him whizzing along the body with an empty taxi just minutes ago. Who knows? Maybe he simply got tired of me and decided to get into a new groove for a day. The next day, if I hooked up with him, we may or may not have talked about what happened. Why whip a dead horse? That happened. That happened. Many times that happened. There was no face on it. It was just something that happened from time to time. It was ridiculous in the old English sense of the word, but it was still a reality. I'm still puzzled. Lord Carlo. Carlo the servant. Carlo was my friend Jaja's housekeeper, gardener, man for all occasions. Carlo was my introduction to the art of being a servant without being servile. It took a couple of weeks to determine that distinction. I was living with a friend of mine named Jaja. He had a 4-bedroom house, and he said, come on, man, I'll charge you minimum rent. Two brothers. He's from Detroit, I believe, an attorney. I think one of the first African-American attorneys certified to practice law in Ghana, which he refused to do because they wanted him to wear a wig and he had a shaved head. At first, I was a bit uncomfortable having someone to call me master. Gradually, I began to understand he was simply using the word as a term, not as an identification of himself as a lower being. While I still don't feel at ease about master. A short, wiry man, about 40 or so, a few uppers and lowers missing, strong as an ox. I walked 50 meters behind him one day, staggered by the 150-pound metal cylinder of propane gas that he was carrying on his head. I could barely lift that monstrously heavy metal, and he was carrying it on his head. And I was skipping steps to keep up with him as we strolled uphill. He was almost the perfect servant. He didn't lie, cheat, or steal, but he did have one bad, almost strange habit for him. He liked to have what they call a small from time to time. I don't know who invented that. I had to have a small from time to time. Woo. Several smalls is called Casipreco gin. Casipreco. The local gins were about as potent as a mild shot of 10 proof wine to me, raised on 40 proof liquors. Not so for Carlo. A few small would change his personality. Normally, he had a cheerful personality. He wasn't working very hard, and he was making nice money. He missed his wife and son, no doubt, but they never seemed to be the catalyst for his unpredictable bouts of alcoholism. That's all I could call it. The catalyst seemed to be some deeply felt soulful pain that he had to talk about. The first time he attacked me with fearsome confessions of guilt about something or other, I didn't know what to say to him. We ran into each other in the hall. He was half small. I want to talk to you, Mr. O'Day, about what are you talking about, man? I didn't know I was going to do the Carlo, I gotta go to bed. He had a way of standing at attention like a chocolate soldier when he went into this mode. And then he would start confessing. After a few minutes, I understood why Jaja ran away to hide in his room when he saw him do a stutter step into the dining room. He could always blindside me. The man who was ironing shirts in the morning was never the dude who came in after a few smalls. Small was the inadequate description the Ghanaians used to describe tots of gin. Tots of gin. Little shot glasses. Little shot glasses.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was in for an hour of whatever he felt guilty about. Whenever he did his stutter step into the house. Always after all of his tasks had been completed. He usually started his monologue off with, "Master."
Mm-hmm.
And then he'd be gone for as long as you were willing to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Innocently, I was bombarded with guilt-ridden stuff for an hour and a half the first time. I'm not kidding. The guy was actually stop you in the house and start talking. Maybe it was the sheer fascination of seeing Carlo drunk, standing like a carved figure, spilling his core out, that stagnated me the first time. I stood there with slack control of my lower jaw, trying to organize a reply to his monologue, a wasted motion. He was going to talk himself out, and there was no need to try to answer what he was saying. On one downtime occasion, I nodded off while he was talking, calmly ranted. And when I relapsed into consciousness, he was still reciting.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating man. That was the conclusion we all reached until he had a few smalls.
Mm-hmm.
I like O'Day from the beginning. I cannot really say why I like him. It wasn't because he was so handsome or anything like that. I just like him. It was just a feeling. And I didn't know he was twice as old as I was, old enough to be my father. He didn't know his true age. Oh, he was very sweet to me. He gave me things and took me places. He took advantage of my innocence, but he did not abuse me. And I grew to love him with all of my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I went to him the first time when he lived next door to our family house in Osu, while he was living with the African-American couple. I didn't know what to do, and he was a man with experience, I could tell. He was quite anxious to leave the place where he was living because he was not getting on with the couple. The man was a heavy drinker, and he beat me that the woman was a liar. I couldn't help him because I was living with my senior brother and I was not earning much money from my sewing. After 5 months or so, he moved out of the Fair Gardens Hotel. I didn't think it was a good idea, but he didn't speak to me about moving or ask my advice. The Fair Gardens Hotel had a terrible reputation for the mosquitoes and the malaria. When he moved, I went to visit him there. I took food and stayed weekends with him. I felt sorry for him sometimes. He was far from home and his family. He had no corn to cook for him or to wash his clothes. I could feel us becoming closer. I think he also had other girls in his life, but I wanted to be more than his girlfriend. I don't think he really took me seriously at first because I was less than half his age. It didn't matter. I wanted to be with him. I wanted to share his life no matter where we were, in Ghana or here or in America. He was nice to me. He helped me move to my own place in Medina. I didn't always want to live with my brother and his wife. It would be hard to say what drew us together. He was a very different person than I was. He was very wild and I was not. But gradually we grew closer. He moved from mosquito heaven to this big house in Kanda. The big house was owned by Tom Epentin. I went to see him there. After a few months at Tom's place, he had to return to America because his visa was finished. I missed him very much, and I could tell that he also missed me. His letters were so sweet. We had known each other for only a year, but it seemed that we had known each other all our lives. During the 5 months he was in America, I began to wish hard to have his baby. He returned just as he said he would, and I was there to meet him. Oh, We were so happy together. He had a new place to live in Roman Ridge. I went to him there. I didn't like to go to him very much while he lived with Mrs. Palm and her boyfriend and her 2 children. They thought I was a free woman. A few months later, he moved to the big house in Nungwa. There he shared with his friend, his American friend, Jaja. He was always moving, trying to find a really nice place to live. I enjoyed going to him in Nungwa. He had a large, beautiful room in the big house, and it was nice. I enjoyed being with him there, and I was there that we began to be very serious. Very serious. And so, after so many months together, I felt like I was his wife. I wanted to become his wife. But sometimes men are so strange, oh, so strange. We decided to take a holiday for the new year at Cocorite, and it was a beautiful time for us. We slept late and we talked to each other a lot other than we had ever talked. I thought he looked a little frightened when I told him I wanted to be his wife, not his girlfriend, and that I wanted to have a baby for him. I know he loved me, but I didn't know how much he loved me. I wanted to find out if he loved me as much as I loved him. He told me he also loved me and that we should begin to plan to live our lives together. It made me very happy to hear this. He was having a house built for us at Palm Wine Junction, and until it was finished, we could live in the Grace Jones Hotel. Oh, it would be so hard to explain how happy we were together. We had been through so much, moving from place to place and waiting for money, and now we were going to be together in our own house. We became more and more close while we were living in the Grace Jones Hotel because we shared so many things. Sometimes we were hungry, sometimes we were not. No matter. He was always writing. Don't you do anything else but write? Being in Ghana, in Accra, at Palm Wine Junction, seemed to be the most natural place in the world for me to be. Sometimes I'd turn a corner or walk along a dirt path that only the Cognoscenti knew about. They called them Lungu Lungu, and it seemed that I had been there before. I had a newspaper column in Horizon magazine called Lungu Lungu. It's an incorporated area like you got in Compton. And Lungu Lungu, one day you might pass through there and it's looked like something, then after a rain it looks like something else, and it's crazy. I felt like I was back on the west side of Chicago when I was a boy, back down in Georgia again. People often ask me, what are you doing here in Ghana here? What can I tell them? I felt compelled to be in this place. That's about as specific as I could get. What with the constant malaria, the negligent, corrupt bureaucracy, the backwardness of daily life, all of it, I still felt more at home than I had ever felt in America. And that's the truth. The situation that developed between me and Grace was totally unforeseen. In Ghana, with so many absolutely gorgeous women, I had no plans to remain monogamous. And I wasn't at first, but then the beauty of this young woman, she was 25 when we met, began to sink into me. I felt the urge to want to build a life for us, which meant that we would have to have a home. And to be honest, I loved the idea of having a house in the hood. Palm Wine Junction was the perfect spot for us until the flood. Before the flood, I could call up the days that made me feel I was in a dream. Sometimes a dream would take a nightmarish turn, but it didn't seem to matter. It was the dreamlike quality of life that mattered. I woke up some strange mornings listening to the liquid sounds of these beautiful languages that people were speaking all around me. The Ga, the Tree, Ere, Nzima, the Dangme, Hausa, Dagomba, Kankomba, whatever. There were mornings when I lay in bed too enchanted by the conversations that the people in our compound were having that I couldn't understand a word of. A day in the life of the compound. Can you imagine that all day long? I could just lay like listen to music with no radio and people are talking to each other, and I'm saying, Zola, I'm sitting laying in bed, make up my own stories. She says to her, I know a few words of tree, for example. Well, who's to say? Mehuye! And then it goes from there, and I'm thinking, well, okay, the baby is walking, because the woman next door just had a little baby. And the older girl, who was about 4 or 5, was like a little woman, you know. She spoke good English. Mr. O'Day, Mr. O'Day. I said, how did you learn English? I don't care. I said, no, you, little one, how did you learn English? I don't care. So how do you, who taught her that? She's, I don't know. Her mother, I don't know. This day started way earlier, about 4:30 a.m., 5:30, before the sun stood up on our heads, when the women of the compound, in a rotation, began sweeping yesterday's compound trash away. Shortly thereafter, the sounds of human beings, not machines, a la Americano, but human beings started the complex day that life in Ghana guaranteed, and roosters. Something like that. A complex day could begin with a simple sweeping of the yard and end with an unexpected death, or vice versa, or something else could happen. Even in this simple compound, life was exciting. The vendors would wander in after they were certain that everyone was up and about. I was obviously not a primary target for them because I love to stay up late and sleep late. But for those who wanted ground nuts, pantyhose, yes, in that climate, people walk around with things on their head look like
yes, I saw. I remember, yeah.
Well, you saw that. Toothpaste, hair nets, aspirin, whatever you wanted. Now is the time. My wake-up call usually came from the clack, clack, clack of the shoe repair shoe shine man who started the day off under the calabash tree that fronted our stucco veranda. It became an anthem for my ears. The shoe shine boys clacking against the side of the shoe shine bar. He was the bass note for all of the other sounds, noises, music that insinuated our atmosphere. Yes, insinuated our atmosphere. I like that word. Layer by layer, the odd quivering of minor notes of the women selling whatever she was selling. I never woke up early enough to see what it was. The children chattering in their pure voices, the liquid voice of the stuttering woman who washed clothes all the time and sang like a bird with a flute in her bill. This woman would start talking in either Tree or English, and she stuttered. And when she opened her mouth to sing, she didn't stutter at all.
Amazing.
I never could figure it out. Maybe the mellifluous tones of a Ghana Broadcasting Corporation voice could be heard above all of this, but we could be certain that some other kind of music was coming from somewhere. Maybe that's a black thing. There was a lull at midday, time to take a deep breath, gather the strength to start the closing kick. I lived for the twilights in Ghana, those magic moments just before it became dark. Somehow, things seemed clear, smells were sharper, conversations deeper, the sound of fufu being pounded, the shrill voices of the children are softer, the delicious aromas of groundnut stew, frying fish, spices, float on the air like a seductive perfume. Someone is laughing gently, maybe at a joke, or it's simply part of the sentence that they just spoke. A rooster crows. I thought it was only supposed to happen at dawn. People are taking their evening baths. I've never lived any place where people bathed, showered so often. Under what would be thought of as primitive conditions, people bathed, showered. They stood naked behind bricked-up enclosures, men, women, and children, soaping themselves into ghostly soap forms, rinsing themselves and strolling out of their bathing spaces with the small buckets of water, of soap, and the bathing wire nets that they've used to wash with. I don't miss the rhythms of machinery. I didn't miss the rhythms of machinery that I used to try to make sense of. The running rumble of the L train in Chicago, the screeching whine of airplane bombing our eardrums in L.A., the casual sound violence that most of us have grown to expect and accept in industrialized America. Night sounds, or maybe they could be called night music.
Yes, I heard that.
I'll play that sometime.
Okay.
Night sounds, or maybe they could be called night music, are mysteriously African. Never could hear some of the sounds anywhere else in the world that you could hear in Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
Do the ladies in Spain make the same sound of satisfaction that the ladies in Ghana make? Perhaps they do.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm absolutely certain they don't have a rainy season in Spain. The rainy season is on us. I'm not a temperature measurer or meteorologist or whatever weather estimating types are called in LA, but I do know it's the rainy season. It doesn't rain every single day, but when it does rain, it comes down in clumps, batters, chunks, globs, buckets. I had no idea it could rain cats and dogs for a day at a time. And just when I was at my weakest, the flood came. And that's the end of malaria.
Oh my goodness. So you
So
had,
I'm going back and forth,
uh-huh.
standing up while you're in the middle of the water, and
Uh-huh.
then a flashback, and then a flash forward.
And you had malaria while you were standing on the table there? Or?
Okay, you know the funny thing?
Uh-huh.
On that particular night,
Mm-hmm.
I had malaria, very bad. I was trying to wait for the morning to come so I could go to the pharmacist to get some medicine.
Mm-hmm.
I was sleeping on a low platter. I had gone to the carpet shop and had a belt, a wooden bed built,
Okay.
frame,
Uh-huh.
and I had put a foam
Mm-hmm.
mattress on it, foam about that thick.
Right.
And I had malaria, really, really bad. I was suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my head over on the floor
Mm-hmm.
because the concrete was cool,
Right.
and put my hand in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Am I sweating that much?
Right, right.
And I picked it up, the water's coming up, and we were living at you saw that little
Right, mm-hmm.
space downhill,
Mm-hmm. Downhill.
and I'm looking at where the water coming from,
Mm-hmm.
and I suddenly realized the water was rising.
Fast.
The door was very solid. It was coming. If the door had been loose, well, we probably would have drowned in that. But the water was coming very, very slowly,
Mm-hmm.
and we jumped up and jumped on the table in the kitchen, and suddenly the water started coming in up over the door through the window in the door,
Mm-hmm.
and for 8 hours, man, that was the roof was A-frame,
Right.
so you couldn't. There was no
Place
nothing on. And I'm looking at this thing. What? I'm gonna drown like a rat in here?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing, the plus thing of it, the only thing I could think of was a real advantage is that there were screens on the window which kept out maybe rats and
Okay.
stuff, but that didn't keep the dirty water out. Some of the water was being flushed down through the drains,
Right.
to the toilets, and
Right.
the crazy thing is, after maybe a couple of hours of standing, my fever went away.
Oh my.
Is that something? From
Scared.
standing in this
Scared. Just scared it away.
I think
Malaria said, "I'm gonna leave here."
I'm gonna leave here.
This too much.
No, not taking me with you. But
By somebody else. Yeah.
when it gets up to your chin, we had a drainage. What was happening was coming down the hill, and in the afternoon we went to this little compound.
Mm-hmm.
There was a back end,
Mm-hmm.
and it just happened to catch the runoff,
Right.
and it was running through this garbage pile in the back, and fortunately it began to recede a little bit just as it got up to the chin.
Mm-hmm.
It receded, but it kept on raining. And I saw, while we stood up on this table looking out the window,
Mm-hmm.
the people in that little house, it looked so tiny when I saw it when we went there.
Mm-hmm.
It looked larger when we lived there.
Of course.
But one woman lost her mind and ran out
Oh no.
into the little, she
In the
couldn't take
compound.
it
Right.
into the compound.
Stressed out.
And I think her husband and some other brave man went out and, and
Gathered
she
up.
was thrashing around and they pulled her back in. And it was really, really crazy because if anybody had fallen, you couldn't get up.
Right. Of course.
There was mud under the thing. So the people who were sitting on a little elevation started singing. And this was pre-Christianity for real.
Right. Okay.
They were singing to Togwe Woe.
Okay.
Who is no Christian, no gospel. Well, I'm planning to hold down.
Yeah. You call the ancestors for sure.
This is the real deal.
Right.
Around about a little bit before dawn, it began to
Wow.
go down. The most incredible thing I saw is that the minute the water receded from our compound, you left mud that thick,
Wow.
people got busy. The women started washing clothes
Take care of business.
and hanging them. The whole compound was just filled with everybody's clothes.
Right.
They started washing clothes. They started washing their kids. The men started filling up wheelbarrows with buckets of mud and pushing it over to one side. And of course, being Ghanaians, they started hustling.
Okay.
They came over to your little room or your little thing, and if you wanted to pay a few cedis, they would cut a little hole in your doorway to have the water drain out, or come in with if you wanted extra service, come in and brush it out.
Oh, okay.
For
But you could do that.
I've been telling you, it was
Right.
funny.
Okay. Yeah.
The bar opened up in front.
People
They
did
set up
right.
the table, and for the first time I can ever remember, somebody offered somebody else beer.
Okay.
We survived. Thank God we survived.
Right.
Drink up. It's 8:30 in the morning.
Wow. Wow.
It was,
Unusual circumstances.
it was bad for a few days. Oh, let's bring this to an end
Yes.
so that we can get ready for the coming week. I have some very interesting stories. I'll just give you the titles of the two of them.
Okay.
One of them is called The Family Who Loved Red Popsicles.
Oh, yes, please.
The other one is called The Village Where Everyone Became Left-Handed.
Gotcha.
And then the other one is called I Was a Black for Trump.
Okay.
So, next Monday,
Yes, Monday
same
and
time,
Tuesday.
same place. Hey,
Roast them.
I'm really glad we got together now. We almost decided not to do this.
But I'm glad we did.
I'm glad we did too.
Okay, then.
Hey, be seeing it at
Yes, your website is
www.odihawkins.com.
It certainly is Odie Hawkins. Very good.
Well, I know who I am.
And with
Sometimes I know.
we end with our sign.
It.
This.
This.
Itness. Itness. I love it. Bye.